All right, let's bring everyone in. Hello, everyone on YouTube. We are going live as we speak. So here we go. There you are.
Ta-da. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. So I have my regulars. We'll see whether I normally what I should do is email them and tell them when I'm changing my time.
Yeah.
But it's been a very interesting experiment. This Zoom after show. We've got Tom, who I think will decloak soon enough. And here they come. Here's Bob. I'm sure Bob's going to have many questions for you up in Vermont, and quite
the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah, he is. He is the man behind that as well. How are you doing, Bob?
I am doing well. It is funny to go to noon. I wasn't on top of that, but definitely worth changing my schedule for. Great show.
Bob, we can't see your face. Can you see Bob's face?
Oh, isn't that funny? Yeah, let me turn my camera on.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
no.
I'll be
Can
right
you
back.
see his face, Joe?
No.
I can't. This is Bob is an activist, and I think this might be.
This could be Big Brother saying enough activism.
I know how to fix it. I'll be right back.
Hello.
Hey, Tom.
I'm sorry I didn't have my video on. Like Joseph did the other day, I had to leave the room momentarily before the after show. Joseph, you remember that happening, don't you?
I remember it. I was giving blood, and I was drinking lots and lots of water, and it was the first time that I had to leave my own show, but I waited until the after show.
Nothing more need to be said, but I took over. You remember I stepped up and I did this, Diane. I showed the guests the notes I had taken during the hour, and I got very excited. And at the end, everything gets red lines around it. And there's the group of people, the virtual community here, the voters and the consumers. And
that's amazing. So you have that for every show?
Yeah, I do. I'm a philosopher, and I love to take notes, and especially when I get excited about something. And you've sparked all sorts of new thoughts today. In fact, I have a question to ask right off the bat. In the early days of AOL, in the early days of the internet, when people were in chat rooms with anonymous names like Space Cowboy 302 and stuff like that, people commented at the time on how people would say things, type things they would otherwise never say to a human being in person. And everybody attributed it to the anonymity. Now, by contrast, most people online now, at least those I come across, are on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever with their real names, and you can identify who they are. Do you think you still have some of that factor with virtual communication, virtual community of people opening up more, saying things they wouldn't say in person? Or do you think there's a reticence? Which way do you think it's going now?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up AOL because that was the big inspiration for me to start Communispace. You know, I just remember in the year 2000, there were the 3 C's: content, commerce, community.
Yeah.
And content meant we have all the information in the world at our fingertips. I thought that was impossible. It turned out to be true. And commerce was about bricks and clicks.
Yeah.
But community was AOL. And I love thinking about AOL because now, at least in the US, if you were raised in the US, if you're between the ages of like 28 and 128, your first experience with community was your AOL account.
Right.
And we experienced there the magic of how we could communicate across all sorts of lines.
Oh, yeah. That, to me, as a philosopher, Diane, I got so excited at first because I remember telling my wife, I'm talking to this room full of people. And I don't know if they're young or old or black or white or British or Australian. And it's like all those particularities are stripped away down to the genuinely human. And for a while, I thought it boded so well for the online experience being almost quasi heaven, because all the sources of prejudice, all the sources of division would be taken away, and it would just be person to person. Well, little did I know, right, that it goes in absolutely the opposite direction so much. But there were those early days, and we'd listen to that crazy sound when we were, going in over the phone lines. And I remember discovering, to my surprise, when I was giving a speech at the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, that the only way I could check my email was through a server in New York City. And when I checked out the next day, my phone bill was $575. I said, those emails weren't worth that much.
Well, if you have AT&T, it still is $575.
Yeah, exactly. But like, to answer your question, I think that the way you get people to be really, really honest is to listen hard to them and show them how what they're saying is making a difference. And I think building that relationship over time. Having said that, right now, I mean, I think that anonymity allows people to say controversial things and what I think of as just plain mean stuff.
Right.
I mean, I have written about 50 op-eds. Every time I write an op-ed, I get 300 comments, 290 of which are negative. The things that people have said to me as they hide behind their anonymity are, I mean, if I didn't have such thick skin, I mean, they're just heartbreaking. They're demeaning. And, I guess you could say they're being really honest with me. Like, they'd never tell me that I'm a fraud to my face, under their real name. But I'm not really sure that's what we're looking for. So I think anonymity now has created just all kinds of strife.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we're getting to the truth. We're just getting to the controversy.
So I want to add I mean, this is definitely in my and Diane's sweet spot, your question, Tom, as you continue your journey into marketing. When I actually built on the 3C model, right? Content, commerce, and community. And I created what I call the 6C model. And the other threes are context, customization, and conversation. And just like they would say, so my launching point was in marketing, they always talk about the 4 Ps: product, place, price, and promotion. And I had said that the 4 Ps were commoditized, and now the new model was the 6 Cs. Now, they used to say the 5th P stood for people, and so the 7th C would stand for customer, or your consumer. That was just a little bit of an aside. But the anonymity, there were one original promise of the internet, and that was the leveling of the playing fields. It was, David slaying Goliath. It was the fact that someone could be at home behind their keyboard, meek, mild, Clark Kent, introvert, and they could take on the mighty corporation, the man, government, with informed, educated intellect argument. Of course, it's devolved into, worse than Wayne's World right now. And now it's not even people hiding behind the keyboard. It's foreign interference and trolls masquerading. It's not even anonymity. It's actually fake identity. And it's concerning for people like us. And that's why, Diane, you're probably investing in companies that are, perhaps looking to change that, to restore some balance and I was going to say law and order. Let's just say order. I don't want to get Bob upset. And order to the thing that got us so excited about the space, in the beginning.
And it's funny. It's not that trolls didn't exist prior to the internet. I mean, I think it was my first op-ed I ever did was for the Chicago Tribune when I was a philosophy professor at Notre Dame long ago. And I got an anonymous letter in the mail, basically telling me this guy was going to kidnap my kids and teach them the truth. And it was shortly after that we moved into a gated community with former military guards. You know, it was like an almost show the police kind of letter. But it was, I decided, no, I'm going to handle this myself. But to know that once you put yourself out there in the public sphere, there's a certain percent of crazy people that, you know, it's not taking the internet to empower them, right? They had their torches and their other devices in former eras, and even through the U.S. mail. So, yeah, it is interesting, though. I've often talked about on this after show. I was a guest a couple months ago, and I refuse to go away. And I've talked about a couple times a principle I discovered years ago as a philosopher. I call it the double power principle. Anything that has power for good tends to have equal and opposite power for ill. It's up to us how we use it. And too much of technology, there's a history of that. A friend of mine wrote a book called Hamlet's Blackberry, where he goes through the history of technology, how we tend to misuse it before we learn how to use it. And it's only by learning from our mistakes that we get a clearer sense of the proper use of the technology. And so as a philosopher, I always try to be hopeful, an optimist, that we are going through that time now. And people will say, you know what? This is getting us nowhere as people, as a country, as a culture. We need to change the way we use the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's the biggest issue of our time right now.
Yeah, me too.
I really, at least in this country.
Yeah.
I think there's also been an empowerment granted to these folks who are now coming out of the closet and driving their, you know, 4-door pickup trucks jacked up high with the big exhaust pipes sticking out the back and the flag waving in the back. Not to categorize these people, but I see way more of that here in Vermont, which is, of course, pretty much a rural state anyway. But I think they feel empowered and that they're coming out of hiding. It's been there all along, and now they feel like it's okay. I can go wave my Trump flag and not wear a mask as I enter the grocery store, and you know, it's crazy. It's really crazy.
It is interesting how many things in our time have become symbolic far beyond their actual use, like the mask, for example, like a certain kind of vehicle, for example. You know, again, as a philosopher, I see this pendulum swing through history, one extreme to the other, right? And usually, my wife and I got a chance to go to the former Soviet Union, go to St. Petersburg, Russia, right after the Soviet Union broke up. And it was amazing to see how people had actually lived under communism. Things were almost unbelievably bad in public spaces, and there were weeds in every yard and graffiti on every building. I mean, they kept the 19th century palaces looking good for the tourists, but everything else was awful. And it struck me that people can, it's like the famous boiled frog fable, right? People can tolerate almost unbelievably bad stuff until it literally becomes intolerable, at which point there's a wake-up call. And then people become galvanized and activist in a new level. And it's almost like a weird cousin of Adam Smith's invisible hand, right? Suddenly a spirit moves amongst people and they say, no, this is just intolerable. We've got to do something about this. And I'm hoping as a philosopher that see things get worse and worse over the last few years, that we have come to a time when there's a wake-up call for people. Do you see that at all, Diane?
I can tell you that most Americans are 96% of my voters hate the divisiveness in our country.
Good.
They don't relish it, but it stops there. So that most, I don't even know where my, I don't even know if I can find my piece, but most of my Democrat voters think that Republicans are bad people, and vice versa. Yeah. So they're not willing to, I mean, look, the stuff that you talked about, Bob, you know, in an oversized vehicle, big tires, American flags streaming and yelling, I really, most Republicans are not like that.
Yeah.
But like you said during the show,
those are the symbols. that we see. That's the narrative that we have. And I don't know what we do about it. I mean, I go to bed at night and I pray that Biden wins in a landslide. And I hate to say this, but I think the very best second alternative is for Trump to win in a landslide.
Yeah.
I really do, because in the absence of that,
dear God.
I think that we're in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my voters all tell me that they expect violence, no matter who wins the presidency, instigated by the other party.
Unless there's a landslide, I completely agree.
Landslide.
I completely agree with you. And the problem is, Bob, and this is where it hurts, where the truth hurts, is we all have to take a good, hard, long look at ourselves and this country and what it is, what it has become, or what it is becoming, or what it could become, if we change things. And we have to recognize that, and I've had Republicans say this to me, which is it possible, meaning it's rhetorical, right, that a huge chunk of this country doesn't subscribe to the progressiveness and the preferred personal pronouns and a lot of the things that are happening right now. And they're like, what has happened to our country? This is not okay. We're not okay with it. And I can tell you, and I said this the other day, which is people have short memories. People forget that the Republicans probably should have lost the last election. They probably should have, without that, October surprise and the Comey letter and blah, 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 and the Russian, whatever. But the bottom line is the Republicans would have been in absolute disarray. The party would have been finished at that point. And instead, it was the Democrats that were in disarray and almost finished and had to take a good, long, hard look at themselves. Either way, and regardless of who wins this election, both of the parties are in disarray and need to take a good, hard, long look at themselves. And we may just see a third party emerge from all of this, or a split. So good can come from this. But I can tell you, the worst thing the Democrats could do if they do win is to gloat, is to we won, you lost, is to reverse the reversal of the reversal of the reversal and go back and just keep the cycle, the vicious cycle going and growing.
Yes, I agree.
Biden, the very weaknesses that people thought he had as a candidate, he wasn't really assertive, he wasn't really aggressive, have somehow become virtues, have become strengths, because he's a person likely not to engage in that spiking the ball in the end zone behavior, nor will he encourage or even permit those around him to do so. That gives me hope that if he wins, we will have a calm transition to what won't strike Trump voters as an extreme alternative that they hate even more than what they thought how they thought they would feel about it. So yeah, we live in interesting times for certain, and we're learning things about human nature. Especially, Diane, we had a discussion on the show weeks ago where the Rutger Bregman book, Humankind, came up. A Dutch guy who's arguing for a very positive view of human nature as opposed to the Hobbesian, Machiavellian sort of views. He goes back to Rousseau, and he does a tremendous amount of social research in the book. And it's the kind of thing, Bregman's book is so compelling, so well evidenced, so well argued, that you're really convinced. And then you look out the window or get on the internet and you say, but then why is all this going on? If there's a really good story about human nature from hunter-gatherers on, then why do we see all this disarray around us? And you remember, even when, what was it, the Harvard guy who wrote the book a year or two ago, The Angels of Our Better Nature or some such, Steven Pinker, I guess, the Harvard guy.
Yeah, Steven Pinker. Yeah, why violence has declined. Yeah,
arguing the decline of violence. And then people were saying, but look all over the world, look at this war and that war. And he was saying, yeah, absolutely. But still, when you look at the grand totality of violence, and it's like what y'all were saying a little while ago in politics, And with respect to violence, the extremes get the airtime. It's news because it's not normal, the normal course of things. And people are very confused about that. People are very confused consumers of the news and of the data they see. They don't realize that they're being shown the one guy in this one city who throws a bottle through the window and breaks the window, not the 3,000 other people who are not throwing anything. You know?
Yeah.
And it's why I noticed the pickup truck, and I don't notice the couple walking down the sidewalk.
I thought you guys were only pickup trucks in Vermont.
No, a lot of Toyota Priuses.
Okay. All right. That's good.
But yeah, so it's going to be, and that's why I was so fascinated by I don't think you can give it up, Diane. This, or you're going to have to find a new owner. But this, first of all, I absolutely loved. There's so many deep insights, and I mentioned two of them, but the other one was this idea of from biases to relationships, that you actually found by breaking the rules that the biases went away and people were even more truthful. I mean, we didn't get to the Eminem story, but I did a lot of back in the day. I was an account planner, and I did a lot of focus groups with some of the companies I worked for, some of the agencies that I worked for. And I remember with P&G as our client, I once walked out on my client because I couldn't stand the way that they were just selectively waiting for sound bites and verbatims that reinforced their preconceived notions or perceptions coming into the focus group. Yeah. Based on what tagline they wanted or what claims, this was claims research. And I remember, in one case, this wasn't the incident. It was it was for a battery. And, we actually gave them the claims, and we said, well, what image comes to mind? They said, it's kind of like, like this, a linebacker coming and sacking the quarterback or whatever, and like this whole violent whole image. And then they kind of backed off and they go, oh, we don't like that. That's too violent. And I'm like, no, it's great because they have a clear metaphor. They have a clear, visualization. It's so good that they can actually draw that parallel. And it was just crazy how much bias was involved. But the other part, of course, of the focus groups, as we were stuffing our faces with M&Ms behind the one-way mirror, is the fact that they're all quiet, right? Everyone's waiting for someone to make the first move. And then somebody says something, and it's typically the bully. And then they start to talk again and talk over people. And then everybody just follows like lemmings that first person and steers the conversation in one way. And so focus groups are so broken, and they have been. Mm-hmm. And that's why I get so excited about not only the what you did, but the how you did it. Mm-hmm. And of course, this whole surprise, which is we came into it because of speed, but what we took out of it was relationship.
Yeah. My M&M story was I was at Kraft. Kraft was an early client, and Gretchen Waitley, who was our main contact at Kraft, told me, she picked up the phone and she said, I've got to tell you this. She said, I was just sitting in a focus group at Kraft. We were all doing exactly what you said, Joe, behind a one-way mirror, stuffing our faces with M&Ms. And one of my colleagues, by mistake, who was sitting behind the glass, leaned over and meant to put his arm on the arm of his chair, and instead hit the lights. And all the lights came on, and the focus group participants turned around and they looked at us. She said, and what do you think we did? She said, we hit the floor.
Yeah, I was going to say, we hit.
There were 6 of them, and they all went down on the floor. And she said, that is the state of market research.
Wow.
We live in fear.
Wow.
Having a direct conversation with people. We think that it's against the rules to just take the glass away,
Right.
Wow.
share the M&Ms, and sit down with people and talk. And she said, and that's why I'm going to sign this contract. And I told that story. I mean, I went back to our staff meeting and told that story. It was so inspiring, you know, in the early days, especially when things were so tough for us. But it's true. I mean, and planners, many planners know this, that, you know, you learn more by, you know, physically or virtually going to somebody's home and sitting down and, you know, watching them cook than you do sometimes by having a really scientific survey ask you about their eating habits. So same thing, the relationship piece.
That's such a powerful story. I mean, imagine the minds of the focus group with what happened. And now contrast scenario 2, where the very thing happens, but then everybody behind the glass smiles and waves. And what the effect that would have had on the people in the focus group. And then suppose scenario 3, they not only smile and wave, but they come into the room for the rest of the discussion with smiles on their faces.
I've got to tell you, I'm really upset with you about that military, that horribly violent metaphor that you gave us that Joseph mentioned. You know, where did that come from?
That story connected with me because I've been on both sides of the glass. I had to once give a talk to a focus group for Marion Merrill Dow Pharmaceuticals when they were developing the nicotine patch. I gave a talk about how to successfully take on a challenge like stopping smoking. I gave a short talk to this focus group off the streets in Chicago and then 2 or 3 other cities. And then I had to go behind the glass to hear what they had to say about my talk. Yeah. I mean, that was quite an experience, you know.
Well, yeah. Well, it's like writing an op-ed and hearing all the comments.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I was just going to say, I wish Jan were here. And look who's
late, Jan. You're late, Jan.
I was catching up on the recording of your show, so that's why I'm late. But thank you, Diane, for all that you've already given this group. Thank you.
Oh no, my pleasure. My pleasure.
We heard I don't know if you caught the tail end of what happened in the focus group when that Diane was talking about, but I was just thinking, isn't it funny that all the clients hit the dust, hit the ground.
Incoming, everybody duck, right?
The embarrassment in a sense, which is we were spying on you. But I mean, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for, you know, what's wrong with marketing and relationship marketing and customer experience or CRM or whatever, you know, take your pick and where it should be, which is the ability to just meet people halfway. That's why actually, you know, when a little geeky bit about when I wrote Join the Conversation, I spoke about conversational marketing, not social media, because marketing is bigger than media. And then I had a whole analogy about, you know, social is what we do on the after show when we have a beer or when humans are connecting with other humans. Media comes from the word medium, neither rare nor well done. You know, one is oil, which is media. One is water, right, which is the joy of without water we die, right? Without human interaction, we die. And so we took oil and water, we put them together, we formed this phrase called social media, and we expect it to make sense when it doesn't. And so you have this essence, this you know, almost contradiction. So I said how to engage marketing weary consumers with the power of community, dialogue, and partnership. That was my strategic underpinning of what this should have been. Community, marketing to and through. You know, as I even wrote in the first book, I called it communal marketing. That was even before social media. I called it communal marketing, right?
Wow.
You know, dialogue, which is having a real conversation between two people or sides, and partnership, which is meeting them halfway. You know, breaking down the mirror of the focus group. And saying let's do this together, you know, and I still stand by that strategically. I still do.
That's great. What a good model.
So all right, so
Diane's acapella was a great example of that community and harmony.
And I was doing the oompa.
Yeah, that's the hardest part.
Right over here.
Percussion.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Well,
I need to run. You probably all need to
We
run
do too.
also. I didn't even
Yeah,
realize what time it was. This was fun.
Time flies when you're having fun. All right, so I will give you the quick spiel, which is we are here every day